This is my glow light.
Okay, we are recording now. What's happening? We had a couple of naturally we little technical difficulty, but we're good to go. Pago and Julie are going to be talking about the paranormal today. I am going to be sitting back and listening. So yeah, it's Tuesday here in the United States. Julie is down under in Australia, and
In Melbourne.
I've known Julie for a long time. And I'm sorry, she's in Melbourne. Um, yeah, so today it's Tuesday, the 30th of May. It's Wednesday in Australia. And my buddy Pago, whom I've known seems like half my life, he's in Oklahoma City to be exact. And take it away, gang.
Well, this is the American Micro Podcast. I think we forgot to say that. Um,
I
Julie's
did,
kind of
didn't I?
yeah, you forgot. It's all right. They know what they're doing. They've already, if they clicked here by accident, then that intro will work for those people. Otherwise, they know why they're here. You all know why you're here.
Yeah.
Julie's new to me.
When I,
We had a
yeah.
we had a podcast last week. I think it was last week, where I met Julie, and she mentioned towards the end of it that she really enjoys paranormal stuff, and my ears perked up, and I was really interested in discussing more of that. So we kind of just shoot the shit during and after our podcast to figure out what the next week's topic is going to be, and I just kept telling Rodney, I think that's got to be it. That's got to be it. So I'm more interested in hearing for letting her take it away. I don't want to take up too much time because I'm really interested to see what somebody on the other side of the planet has to say about paranormal activity. So Julie, where did you first get interested in the paranormal?
I guess it kind of all started when I was very, very young. Like I was about 2 years old, and I had I guess you could say, an awakening because I almost drowned. And the absolute irony of my experience is that the year before I was born, my 4.5-year-old brother drowned. So it was kind of like, this, is God going to do this again to my parents, unfortunately? So it didn't happen because my other brother actually saved my life because I was found face down in the water. And I think in a way his kind of connection to me has always been a bit like the rescuer, a little bit like the knight in shining armor kind of thing. So, but I also feel that my brother himself has had some sort of connection to me from the other side because I've always felt like that kind of presence around me. So also at the same time, I didn't have like a tunnel experience that people talk about, but I did have some sort of awakening because I was probably too young to remember a lot of things back then. And I used to get nightmares a lot as a child, and I think it's because I was experiencing kind of another dimensional reality compared to others, that just go about their daily lives, I suppose. So I was picking up on things from another level that is really hard to deal with at such a young age. And I guess the kids in school thought I was a little bit weird. So I spent a lot of days alone in primary school and high school because I was just too weird for some people. So, and one thing in my subsequent research about people like me, like empathic, I guess you could call me, or sensitive, whatever name you give it, there was a research done by a psychologist, and they said that highly sensitive people are actually taking in more information in their brain than the average person. So that's why they would get high levels of anxiety, and they would be hyper vigilant about safety and things like that, because what they're perceiving is much more like 360 degree than say the average person walking around. So they're just a little bit, doesn't mean that others can't connect to that, but it just means that some people are a little bit more in tune and aware according to their experiences when they're young. So as you get older, it either develops or you might block it. Some people block it because they can't handle the emotional aspect of it, which is understandable. So yeah, so here I am at 52, and still sometimes, it can be hard to deal with sometimes, but it has brought some interesting insights. And over time, I just got into so many different subgenres of paranormal because I'm right across the board and I'm very open. So yeah, it's a learning experience. But yeah, I wouldn't have the nightmares back. So that wasn't an easy thing. I was sleepwalking and going outside on the front lawn, and my mum had to put a lock on the door. She took me to a psychologist. He said she's gone through some sort of trauma,
Wow.
but he couldn't pinpoint it. He said she's normal mentally, but there's a trauma there. So sometimes near death experiences can be traumatic as well, so and I've almost drowned twice actually. So I
Wow.
don't have a good relationship with water. The second time was when I was about 35, and I was at a surf beach and I got caught in a rip, and it was so bad that I felt like I was in a washing machine. And I've always felt like my guardian angels, or whatever person calls it, because each tradition is different, but I always feel like I had a guardian angel kind of watching over me, making sure that nothing would happen. And I was in that washing machine kind of atmosphere in the water. I had no control, and the first thought of was, what's my daughter going to do without me?
Oh, wow.
She needs me. And then the next minute, I felt like it was almost like a huge hand or something, force, whatever it is, actually taking me to shore like really quickly. It was like in a matter of seconds. And I was so far out that it couldn't have been, it was like a distortion of time. I don't know how to explain it any other way. And then I was to shore like within seconds. It was so quick. And I kind of felt like I was in an abyss for a period, but I felt this presence, and I knew that guardian angel was taking care of me. I'm like a cat with 9 lives. I've been in dangerous situations, so I always know that they protect me whenever I ask for that. So yeah, that's kind of like my experience. And I've had a lot of people that I've spoken to over time that kind of opened up to me about their various experiences. I've heard everything from UFO stories to people that have seen elemental spirits, fairies, or those kind of spirits, um, ghosts, you name it, everything and in between. So, um, but I'm very interested in particular like the Bigfoot and Dogman stories that you have in America, because there's so many places in America that have like hotspots like the Appalachians and the Ozarks and Mount Shasta in California, um, and I'm really interested in David Paulides' work. I don't know if you've heard of David Paulides' The Missing 411.
Nope, I'm not familiar.
Wow, he's an ex cop who's been sort of looking into the strange disappearances of people in the national parks in America. Now, these are a little different to the normal disappearances, because normally you would have like evidence like clothing left behind, a body, this and that. And there's always like, footprints and stuff. But strange things happen on these particular disappearances. Like dogs act very strangely. They will go around in circles and act nuts around the area they disappeared. They do thorough searches. Like the search teams are absolutely thorough, and they map each area that they actually search. And when they've been through an area and they found absolutely nothing, and then down the track they found something there, that's neatly folded or something like that, that the person didn't die from like a serial killer or anything like that, but they died from exposure. But sometimes the people that they've found that have died from these strange experiences are always found face down in water, and they have their clothes neatly folded next to them. And sometimes they think that they've been dropped from a high level, a high altitude is one of the ones. One of the other cases that I heard of David Paulides was a person actually had melted into the ground, literally. They found a body melted into the ground or something of that nature.
Was it ashes? Was it ashes or?
It was like the body was like literally. I don't know how you could.
Like a gel, or like the skin,
Yeah,
or
like melted, like half of their body was like melted
oof.
into the ground, which was really unusual. They usually found around boulder like clusters. That's a very common thing, which is interesting because they say that where there's paranormal activity, there's usually either a large conglomerate of crystals, limestone, geological sites that have some sort of connection to it. Now, I don't know if that amplifies energy to a degree that would create a portal to another dimensional reality. There's still the thing called stone theory. I don't know if you've heard of stone theory.
I don't think so. I've heard a little bit about what you're talking about, like ghost sightings around courts and like the idea that it's, containing memory or something of that, nature. But what's
Yeah,
stone theory?
that's basically what stone theory
Oh,
is
then
that
I guess I have.
yeah. Stone theory is basically like that that material actually retains like physical memories in some way. They don't know how, they haven't worked out how, but there's a theory out there, a scientific theory that they're still researching all of this stuff. But it's all very interesting. I mean, there is a certain element and component of science in here, and it's just that we haven't figured it fully out. And there's a lot of things about other dimensional realities that we don't understand. There's a very common theme of missing time with a lot of things. But in relation, there's one case in the David Paulides where this child apparently had gone missing. He was about 3, and he was in the national park, and he was in front of his parents, like 2 meters away, or I don't know how much that is in feet, but very close. And all of a sudden they turn their head and turn back, and he's just in a split second gone, and they have no idea how that happened. Anyway, this is a very strange story, but he actually said that they ended up finding him, and he said that he saw his grandma, but he said his grandma didn't look like the normal grandma. She had black eyes,
Okay.
apparently.
Yeah, that's
So
creepy.
she looked like the grandma, but she had fully black eyes. And she asked him to defecate on the ground for some
Okay.
reason.
All right.
Now, I don't know if that is because she was taking a sample for DNA or something like that. Now, the strange thing is, his grandma, a few weeks before that, had been in the national park camping, and apparently she had missing time and she saw a UFO. So I think that has a connection somewhere. I don't know why, but I just find that really curious that, he went missing. They were trying to get him to do something, and someone looked like his grandma that was trying to deceive him, and he didn't do
Had
it.
she had she had
But
had she had she passed away, or was she still
no, no, no,
alive, or
no, she was still alive. And
That sounds
that's
like
the
a
thing.
mimic. They're
or he's
mimicking her, maybe.
Yeah, a doppelganger, like which you hear many stories about doppelgangers as well. And, they could be related to UFO, not necessarily a ghost, but UFO. This is the other
mm,
dimensional realities that we're dealing with. And I feel that there is a lot more that's coming out now because we're in a time where there is a lot of change. And as you well know, Pago, the Hopis have predicted a lot of changes. A lot of the Native American tribes have talked about the fourth level of evolution or development. You know, there's the first world, the second world, the third world, and the fourth world, which is more enlightened days, I guess you could say. Um, and they talk about the earth changes and how that's going to affect us interdimensionally. And I feel like there's been a change in the vibrational energy of the whole earth. And, you know, we're coming into a time where there's more openness now towards these things. People are more inclined to believe that there's, you know, other beings from other dimensions. And there's a lot of cases that are coming out now. People are talking about their experiences a lot more now than they ever have before, because there's not as much ridicule, you know.
Right.
And I mean, scientists are starting to study things more now. And yeah, but the missing for 11 cases I find are really fascinating, like how things turn up, because there's ones where there's children, like very small children, 2 years old. They end up, now they're in the middle of the forest, in the middle of nowhere, where there's no trucks, no, like, how would you say, car access or anything like that. And they end up thousands of miles away being found with, you know, just strange circumstances that happen. The search dogs, they go nuts. They won't go to certain places. Like, it's like something, another force is stopping them from going further. And sometimes they go around in circles, like the person disappeared from that position and appeared in another position, like they teleported almost. It's just weird stuff. Which I find just absolutely fascinating. I haven't had a chance to read David Paulides' book, but it would be very interesting read. I would say that much. And he's got 2 documentaries out at the moment. So,
how do you spell
Paulides. So Paul Ledes. I think it's a double L.
Okay.
So it's Paul with a double L, Ides.
Okay.
Paulides.
All right. That
Yeah.
makes it more clear. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wonder if those
So
dogs
Paul
won't go.
Leahy's.
Yeah.
Paul
I wonder.
Ledes. Yeah.
I wonder if those dogs won't go to certain areas because black-eyed grandma pee like scares them off. If they're just like peeing in a perimeter and the dogs are scared away from the region. So, are you familiar with? You mentioned Mount Shasta. Back when I lived in California, I visited up there. We It's just a weird series of circumstances. We ran into this guy in San Diego, wanted to record in my little studio in my house that I recorded with Rodney in a lot. This guy named Sky Saxon came into town, and a buddy met him in a bar and brought him back to my house. Sky Saxon was the lead singer of a band called The Seeds. The Seeds was one of the original psychedelia bands before The Doors. And supposedly, the story goes, Sky Saxon taught Jim Morrison how to croon properly, or like whatever. But after having met Sky Saxon and after hanging out with him for a long time, the guy was not a shy guy. He was very proud of himself and his work. So I could see how that story would have been put out there by him and pushed hard through the years. But Sky ended up spending a lot of time with his friend who owned a house up at the base of Mount Shasta, and they invited us out there a lot. We went out there a lot to go hang out at the base of Mount Shasta in this kind of like off the grid cabin kind of thing. And we'd go into town, and town at the time was very tiny, little country dive bars, tiny coffee shop, some little hippie stores with like candles or whatever. Um, I don't remember a church, but I'm sure there was like a tiny church, and like that's basically like all that was there. But the little bookstore had this little pamphlet kind of book, and it had some kind of supernatural like drawing on the front, and I was curious. I was bored one morning, probably hungover from that little country bar, and picked it up and started reading it, and it talked about the Lumerians. Are you familiar with the story about the Lumerians in Mount Shasta?
Um, yeah, I'm very familiar. I think they might be equated with the tall white beings as well. Maybe they
Yeah,
might
yeah. That's the story I got, is that, and I'm probably missing some of it, but the story that I got from locals after like reading the little book, I bought it and like read it and talked to a lot of the locals, is there's like this pervasive local story about people that go missing, and so they'll do the search parties and stuff. Um, and I guess they've had some accounts. Maybe it's myth, maybe it's, whatever. Who's to say? But the story I got was that. Some survivor somehow gave them a story of like they were lost, and they found like a white door that like let them into the mountain, and inside the mountain was an advanced civilization, and the advanced civilization, and maybe there's like some like interdimensional teleportation or some time and space. I don't know, but they were saying that these are the descendants or the survivors of Atlantis, and they would sometimes take human beings wandering around Mount Shasta for whatever reason, maybe to invite them to their culture, maybe to study them. I'm not sure, but this was like a continuous story that was passed around, like the Mount Shasta area and the Lumerians. So I thought that it would be interesting to hear your take on that, since that's kind of up your alley. You're talking about like Bigfoot and like the tall beings or whatever.
I definitely believe in like some ancient cultures like Atlantis and Lemuria. I feel a very strong connection to that. I mean, the story of Atlantis alone is that they were a very advanced civilization, and it should be kind of like a warning tale for our civilization, because apparently on the island that they're on, or wherever they were located, there was two factions. So there was ones that were, the really negative, probably full of greed and all the negative emotions, and there was the ones that were the more enlightened ones. And they had very high technology at the time, so they knew they had the power of lasers, and they were using crystals and things like that. They had very high level understanding of things, and they destroyed themselves basically with these warring factions. And then
Probably with
um,
memes, internet memes. I'm betting that that's what did them. Go ahead.
maybe
Yeah, that's it.
who knows?
They invented memes and
Internet
everything went
memes.
downhill.
Who knows? But it's kind of like
Sad
a
faces, smiley
Mhm.
faces. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's kind of though like a warning tale, because as they say, we're doomed to repeat history sometimes if we don't learn our lesson. And I mean, the whole island apparently went into the sea because they were using lasers or some sort of high level technology that destroyed, Um, you think about it and you look at where we're going today, like we're using AI at such a rapid rate. We're not even spiritually advancing to a point where we're ready for high technological AI, because we don't have the ethics to back it up, if that makes sense. Because,
That makes
imagine
all kinds of
AI in the
sense.
hands. I mean, imagine someone using AI, high level AI for, and they're entirely corrupted, like, and have no ethics. I mean, that's
Here's the thing,
dangerous in
real
itself.
quick. AI that I use won't allow you to go past a certain stream of ethics. Like I used chat. As a matter of fact, I use, what is it? Chat Open AI and it's GPT and Chat GPT Open AI, and there's certain things they won't talk about.
Yeah,
But you're right. You're
there's a
absolutely
couple
right.
like there's a couple things about that. Like you're right, they have put like little limiters on them. And some of the earlier versions, at least, the limiters would work until they started like prodding it in different ways, and they would kind of trick it into giving them the information they wanted, like some sort of chemistry solution that you probably shouldn't put into the hands of like a kid or somebody who's an asshole. But there's also the problem of we're creating it's possible for anybody to create a large language model, kind of independent of these large corporations themselves, and that's going to become more and more accessible to people. So there's going to be AI in the hands of people who don't have the limiters like in place. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Julie, that like we haven't the maturing of our ethics and morals hasn't been keeping pace with our technological growth prowess. Like I don't know how you want to put that, because if it's unchecked by ethics and morals, then is it really growth, or it's just kind of capability? Like our capabilities are
Yeah.
going by leaps and bounds, but true growth kind of happens when you.
Well, real quick, I mean, no, go ahead, Pico. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say true growth happens
But you
when
guys,
you have a level of understanding. You know how it's being, how your what your responsibility is for these tools that you're using, how it's going to impact people like morally, ethically, and all that good stuff. That's true growth. Anyway, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, it's like, spiritually, um, we let's just say, if you want to talk about paranormal stuff, religion can be somewhat. You can say that people that believe in God, the Christian God, or people that believe in Allah, three or four or five main religions, it's all in common. I mean, pretty much, right? And so spiritually, we come from we out of our beliefs on just the everyday getting up, going to work, making the money, the Western civilization paradigm that we've been coaxed into, but we haven't evolved past being able to see, all we see is just what's right in front of us. Our souls and our spiritual awareness, and just our like you said, Julie, our ability to be sensitive and aware and somewhat intuitive, or very intuitive, we're not there yet. And until we're, I mean, you can call it. If there's a certain amount of paranormal activity it's going to take, or just relationships with, um, quote unquote, the other side. Just a higher level of being. It's going to take that to get to where we need to be, as far as evolution is concerned.
Yeah. I mean, people say, like, I've heard stories from abductees where they've said basically that what aliens are saying is that, people make the comment, why don't aliens just come down and reveal themselves? Well, think
Right.
about it. If we can't even treat our own fellow man of a different culture with respect and care and understanding, how do we expect to do that with an alien being that looks completely different to us, who would scare the hell out of anyone else by
Julie,
the way
Julie,
they look?
you and I have had this conversation before. Like, I remember you and I were talking about it, about aliens, and
Yeah.
because of course, dude, we cannot be the only civilization in the universe. There's just no way. But like, there's no way they're not coming down here. Like they fly by and they're like, nah, I don't think we're going down there. I don't want to
Well,
deal with these. I don't want to deal with these humans. They're
well,
just
I
they're
immediately think
so
about
messed up.
Especially
Like, we'll just
Karens. Especially Karens.
Karens. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the Karens.
Right. Right. So I'm immediately reminded of the tribes that exist right now without Western like ownership or constant contact, where somebody tries to cross the river into their territory in a canoe, and all of a sudden there's like poison dart arrow and spears and stuff coming their way. They'll kill people who try to make contact with them, like no ifs ands or buts, you will be killed. And I kind of think about like that
yeah.
with aliens. I'm like, every time something kind of foreign comes to us as humans, like we act like those tribes. Like we start just like throwing rocks at it and throwing missiles at it and like, taking it apart. Like we'll collect one of them and like cut it apart. That's just kind of our nature. So yeah, why? I mean, that's why we don't go over to those tribes for the most part. Like an idiot does every once in a while, but for the most part, we just like leave them there to themselves because they've made it clear that they don't want anybody to come and visit. And I would suspect anybody who doesn't like catch our TV shows and our movies like in the signals flying through space, but does show up and gets like an F-15 lob a missile at them, or like have an angry guy in the country shoot a shotgun at him through the tree line when he's trying to say hi under the cover of darkness because that's the level of light that they see best in. That's their daylight. Um, like they might be like, "Oh, I'm not welcome here. Peace out." Like we won't be returning. We'll
Yeah.
check in on you guys in like 500,000 years and see if you're still around, or see if the
Dude,
dolphins have
check
taken
this
over.
out. Check
I think
this out. I just saw this movie called Nope. Have you guys seen that movie? It's called
Yep,
Nope.
just
No.
saw
NOPE.
it. Yeah.
Dude, what a great movie! It
Mhm.
it is it
Yep.
is it is the quintessential paranormal flick. You're just like, wow, that could totally happen. Like this
Yeah.
thing that's hiding in the clouds. It's just and when it gets hungry, it just feeds. It comes out of the clouds and it starts feeding on people and horses and cattle and whatever's out there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's
Spoiler
a great
warning
movie.
warnings. But yeah,
you just
it is an
told us the
amazing.
whole plot.
He did.
Sorry.
Yeah, he did. He ruined it for whoever was listening. We should just put spoiler warnings on like
Sorry.
the channel. The channel and be like, don't expect us to warn you in advance. We're gonna ruin everything for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was
Every
a good
yeah.
movie too, and it did touch on a few paranormal things that I liked. The little creature thing, I'm not really ruining anything with this. The creature thing, like it looks like to me, it looks like what I would think an interdimensional being would look like to our eyes. We'd be perceiving something like showing itself through like as perceived through multiple dimensions. You've seen, I guess, was it, Carl Sagan um, does like the talks about like what would the fourth and fifth and whatever dimensions look like. He'd be like he took an object and showed a shadow, and he'd be like that shadow is like what we perceive in 3D, but like the on a 2D surface would be like our 3D, and this 3D version would be like their 4D or experience or whatever. And in this little object in the sky, this creature in the sky in that movie, it's kind of like folding and changing shapes constantly depending upon its like mood or whatever it's doing at the time. And that constant like kind of weird folding and changing of
How
shape,
hungry it
like
is.
it looks a lot like I would suspect, kind of higher dimensional shapes look like to our eyes. And I found that like a really interesting thing to put into a movie without making it the biggest part of the plot. It was just kind of incidental to what was it? Let's see, Key and Peele. Which one made the that movie? Is that Key that does all the
Get
movies, the
out.
horror movies?
Get
Okay,
out.
yeah,
Did he do Get
yeah,
Out?
yeah. Get Out, Get Out.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Yeah, that was a
He's
great
very
movie.
brilliant. Yeah. I definitely love his movies. He's got a kind of like it's sort of like mixing the racial element with with the paranormal element of it as well, and other
Yeah.
ethical concerns as well. So it's kind of like I like his style.
Hmm.
He reminds me of that other director who's got a different style, but kind of in the similar vein, like I can't remember Shimalayan. I don't know how to say his
Oh,
name.
M
Oh, Shyamalan.
Shama.
Shyamalan.
Yeah, M Shyamalan. Yeah, Night or
Shyamalan.
no? There's
Shyamalan?
Shyamalan.
yeah. He's always got the
Yeah, I
twist.
think
Oh my
that's
god.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's always got very unusual kind of concepts, but going back to the point about the aliens, why they wouldn't come down. The other thing is also is that the governments are very concerned about aliens, giving people knowledge. And think about it. Have a really good think about it. Why would they be concerned about that? Is because if aliens gave us technology, it would eradicate hunger, it would eradicate poverty, it would give us clean energy, and that would threaten a lot of industries, that are
Well, I
making money off coal. Coal. They're making money off coal. They're making money off, food production, GMO, and all that sort of stuff.
I mean,
So think about it.
I could certainly see like industrial, like interruptions, where there's this mass scale interruptions on that scale. But I can more easily see like if Native Americans had kind of been welcomed by white people, and all of a sudden all these white people were like, shit, man, we don't have to live like we were living over there on the European continent. We can just kind of have this other entirely different way of thinking and not be so stressed out about like the Western God and being puritanical, pulling our socks all the way up to our waist and like covering our ankles and like getting dressed for 5 hours every morning, just slinging a little leather over your bits.
Wearing full underwear, full of like the Mormons do. They have like the full like if the guy takes off his suit, he's got like you know he's got like a garment underneath his. Yeah, dude, they're so
Yeah,
so
yeah. The aliens come down and
dude,
they give us
chill
an
out.
entirely different way. They give us an entirely different way of thinking, and we're just like, shit, man. We've been getting it all wrong. We've been stressing ourselves out. This is bullshit.
Or better yet,
We're gonna.
they say that this is what they say. They're like, dude, look, they're like, either you do it our way and chill, or we'll make you chill.
Well, that,
You've got,
yeah. I mean, that's
there's yeah. There's
now
They
you're just
only
talking.
do that. I think they only do that if they're threatened. But they don't. I don't think they do much harm. I think it's more the government's involved with that because there's a lot of
we're gonna
military
threaten
men.
them.
Yeah, there's a lot of military men coming out now saying that they're doing a lot of undercover disinformation. They were part of the Men in Black programs, spreading disinformation. Even James Hynek, who was part of Project Blue Book, had questioned many accounts that he'd investigated that couldn't be explained, basically. By swamp gas or whatever you call it, and there's a lot of significant UFO cases that are documented with some evidence. There's the case of the man in Canada who actually approached a UFO when it landed, and he got so close to the air vent of the UFO that it when it was taking off, it actually sprayed him with like hot steam or something like that, and it had like a pattern on it, and the pattern was on his stomach. And when he went to the hospital, he found out that he had radiation poisoning
I
from
remember
it.
reading about that. Yeah, they even had like an image
Yeah,
of the circular grating kind of bits.
yeah. He
Yeah,
had it all over, and he had health problems from that point on. What point of reference? Don't get too close to a UFO if you don't know if it's got radiation or, you
or
know,
anything,
um,
or anything really.
anything.
If you can't
The
identify
entities could
something,
have.
don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah. Don't touch an entity unless that it hasn't got, because you could give it disease or it could give you. Who knows? Because it's from a
Absolutely.
different reality. You know what I mean? So,
Get consent
there was.
first. Consent is the
Bottom
most
line, dude, I
important
see
thing.
a UFO. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to, get eaten, swallowed, dissected. I'm not, I don't need it. I just don't need
Those are
it. You know
valid
what I mean?
concerns.
It's
Those
just
are
not
valid
my,
concerns.
you know, I mean, I lived in the desert for, oh God, 5 years. And I can tell you, you see things in the midnight, dude, you're at 5,000, 6,000 feet. Okay. And you see things, you see lights. You could see hell bop to look like a car on a freeway, you know what I mean? You could just see it as clear as day, just going across the sky. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, I'm not, no, saucer comes down, says, we come, I'm like, nope, not happening, bro.
You're like, yeah, the Native Americans
Till
bought that one
what was
too.
that other crazy movie?
I've actually heard a lot of Native
No,
Americans are
Jack Nicholson.
actually. Uh, are actually, quite familiar with a lot of the beings. Obviously, they call them star people, so a lot of them are very familiar.
Yeah.
They've had experiences, particularly in Alaska. Alaska is a big hotspot for UFO experiences because it's a more isolated place. There'd be a lot of activity. I mean, I personally know a military man, I will not mention who he is, who's seen wreckage. He said to me that he saw wreckage. He was shown access to wreckage, and he knew that the material wasn't like anything on Earth because it didn't have the um, capability like it was something, you could crush it, but it would go back to shape, and it was really hard when it went back to shape. I don't know how to explain it, but it was not like material that you find on Earth.
Yeah,
So
that memory retention material is extremely expensive, and you don't just like find clumps of it laying around in a field. Like it will be, if it is an experimental, vehicle by a country with that type of capability. It's only recent that they've had it, and I mean, when I say recent, I mean within decades. And they're certainly not going to like not know where it lands. So yeah, you're not going to see it, and if you do see it, I would imagine it's from somewhere else. That's just my guess.
yeah,
I've never actually run
Yeah,
across any alien
we're not
stuff.
we're not
there is a
talking
case in
memory foam,
Brazil.
right?
There is another case in Brazil where there was a
Had to do
UFO that
that.
crashed. I think it was in Virginia. Virginia, I think it was called. There was a UFO that crashed in
Bahia,
Brazil. I think it was Brazil. Is that how you say it? Virginia? Virginia? I don't know how to say it properly, but
Bahia.
it
How,
was
how do you spell it?
a Barginha or something like that, something along those lines.
Oh, I
Anyway,
have no idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, there is a documentary on it, and apparently there was many witnesses to this because it crashed almost like next to the town, and that town was highly populated. So it crashed, and this guy, he's still vivid today as he was back then about what he saw. And he saw like the wreckage. It was kind of like a cigar shape, and it crashed, and there was bodies. He said they looked like probably greys, which was his description of them. They were laying around the craft, and then the military men came very quickly and shooed him out of the area. Now, the other thing that was interesting was two of the beings actually escaped and were walking around the town, like hiding in places. And
Badass.
there was this empty lot, apparently an empty lot, which was sort of like had a fence or something. And these two girls were walking through this empty lot because the grass was a bit high. And they turned around and they saw this being crouched down. And she said that when she looked at its face, its eyes conveyed a lot of fear because maybe it didn't have its usual technology to freeze a human or, to stop a human from attacking it. So it was very vulnerable because they're vulnerable without their technology, obviously. So, and she said it was so fearful and it was crouched down and it was looking at her like, oh my God, what are you going to do to me? Kind of thing.
Sure, that's how
And
I am
they,
whenever I go out and I realize I've left my phone at home and I'm surrounded by people and I'm just like, oh shit, what am I don't want to talk to anybody. I have no way to look up facts on the internet. I don't know if anybody's texting me anymore. I'm scared. So,
That's
but
such a
it's
sad, sad,
interesting.
sad situation, but it's true.
Yeah, but I found it very interesting, and the girls were equally as scared. There was three of them, and they were just terrified. And then the the military came in. One of the military guys apparently, and this is some of the testimony from his sister because of what happened afterwards. One of the military guys actually caught one of them. He grabbed it and he restrained it and took it into a truck, and they took it away. About a few days after that, he got really sick and he died.
I was gonna
basically.
say you don't touch anything in nature unless you know what it is. Like we were talking about
Yeah,
earlier. Like
well, I guess, the military have to restrict, because
Who
this
got
thing
sick?
is
The
running
so
around.
the military person got sick.
The
The
military
military
guy
person
got
got
sick and
sick.
he died. Yeah, he died. He died after the
Wow.
experience.
Yeah.
So his sister said, he told her that, he'd grabbed this thing, this being, this entity, and yeah, just got very sick afterwards. So, you know, he said there was like some sort of substance on its skin that was very yucky. Like, he doesn't know what it could have been, something biologically from it. I don't know why, but that affected him. But yeah, he died. So I would assume that from that experience, the military men probably would have been in those biosuits after that. Or something like that. It can be very dangerous, things from space. Um, so, that's an interesting story. There was many witnesses that saw the lights and the thing crash. There was, you know, quite a few people in the town, and it's still talked about today. So obviously, with multiple witnesses. I mean, there's the Phoenix lights. There's that story. Multiple witnesses. That they just explained away. Even the politician who was making a joke about it came out later and said, I had to do that because I was told to.
yeah,
So, and one of the other counselors, she wanted to find the truth, and she was getting death threats and warnings, not to pursue it. So, there's people that know about it, and if the government thinks that we're still dumb and we don't know what's going on, they're the dumb ones, because people do know. There's a lot more stories out there than we know of, too. And people are coming out more and more about the stories because it's an environment now where there's probably a lot more acceptance. And we always fear what we don't understand. So, I think it's important for people to educate themselves about what's really
Real
going on.
quick.
What's the
Real quick. Your
Yeah.
boy Lex had a guy on. No, talk Pago. You remember that guy Lex, that podcast that you like?
sure. Yep, Lex Friedman.
I can't. What's his? Yeah. So he had on a guy who was, I think, I don't know if he was an astrophysicist in the realm in the same way that Neil deGrasse is an astrophysicist. But Lex Friedman asked, he posed the question to this gentleman: do you think there is any other viable life forms other than humans in the universe? You know what the guy said? Absolutely not. He
Oh, he
said
thinks
we are the
no.
only
Yeah.
life forms. That's what this guy said. Yeah, he said, but I was like, wow. Coming from, why would Lex have this guy on his show for this gentleman to say no? Like you know, and basically I can't remember if he said we need to become more informed about who we are as human beings, spiritually, physically, blah 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 blah. But yeah, that kind of stunned me.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time from people who are more analytical, and I'm an analytical person in their jobs, where they're like more engineers or whatever. Maybe they're medical, or maybe they're physicists, where they deal in raw data, and I tend to be that way too. But I keep my mind open as far as the unknown, especially when the unknown is as vast as the universe is. This isn't a very small pocket of the universe. We've every time we get a new telescope, when we open up a better lens, it goes further out and further back in time, and that's a lot of potential for something to I say manifest in kind of an evolutionary way, manifest itself and become civilized and get to the point where it becomes exploratory, and manages to branch out. I mean, you've got to defeat certain things like you either have to create a being that lives a long time to travel long distances, or you have to get good at sustaining generations through space flight, or you have to get decent at suspending animation, or you have to figure out how to jump large gaps in almost instantaneously in a small amount of time with very little like force, ripping apart potentially ripping apart bodies. Or I guess you remove the body part aspect, so that there's no gelatinous stuff that can be ripped apart by Mach forces or whatever, or potentially ruined by little meteoroids, going the opposite direction as you at near the speed of light and killing your soft gelatinous body. There's always things that you have to get around, but given enough time, these are not problems that can't be solved theoretically. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that there's nothing out there. And with so many previous cultures, all speaking to visitors from, not all of them, but a lot of them speaking to visitors from not from the ground, but from like the sky or sometimes the water. And us still having like experiences like that where we get videos of these crafts going at extreme speeds into water and back out when we don't have aerocrafts that will go down into the ocean and back out. We get them through like FLIR video and stuff like that, or just sightings that are reported by these pilots, experienced pilots. It's really interesting to me that we have all these stories that have been passed down through cultures about things or people that came from the water to visit us on land, or things that came from space, and then visit us on land, and then go back to the places that they came from, and they don't align exactly with kind of the fanciful stories of like the gods, because the gods don't have kind of those limitations of like needing to travel like at a specific speed and from a specific place, and like having gear and stuff like that. The gods just kind of like can do what they want. They can just appear out of nowhere. They can just bring you up to their little fantasy land. There's not many limitations on them. So it's really weird that there's all these stories that seem to be based on kind of a physical body of these other cultures or whatever. So I'm not going to say it's not out there. I'm going to say I'd prefer to lean towards there's likely something out there. Whether we have run into it or not, I have no idea. I haven't experienced that. I haven't seen the proof, but I've heard a lot of interesting stories that pique my interest. So that's kind of where I sit on those
But
things.
maybe some other cultures actually perceive them as gods, in their particular. Maybe some of them are very isolated, so they would have a perception that they're a god because they have special qualities that
Certainly.
humans don't have. So they would perceive them that way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are that. It just means that they have technologies that makes them appear magical, so to speak. I don't know if you've ever seen the scene in Return of the Jedi where C-3PO is in the seat and Luke Skywalker makes his chair rise, and
Yeah.
all the Ewoks go, "Oh wow, he's a god," because he's got magic. But it's not really magic. It's just Luke Skywalker is using his abilities. But
Well,
it
but it
is
is kind of magic. It's the Force.
it is
which
magic. It is magic. But what I'm trying to point across is like if it was a alien being, they would have technology to do things like that.
Sure. Sure.
To create a situation, and maybe they appear they can also possibly shapeshift to appear to a particular culture in a way that they understand or they can relate to, because otherwise whatever they're trying to tell us or teach us or whatever it may be is easier when you're giving the audience something that they're familiar with or at least have an understanding of. That makes sense. So I think just them coming and scaring people out of their minds is not a good approach. I mean, obviously there are some abduction experiences that are very traumatic, and it's a very complex issue. I've spoken to abductees myself, and they have varying degrees of perceptions about their experience. So, I'm still trying to understand that part of it. there's physical evidence as well. There's these implants that are being taken out of people that have radio signals. They're so complex that they actually self-destruct after a certain period of time. And some of the materials are actually found to be part of meteorites and some, compounds that are not viably available on Earth as easily as, and they just appear in random people of different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. So, there's something going on. And I think it needs to be, looked into more, and we all have I think it's important. It's an important time in history because we need to prepare, to know and understand what this is. Um, and, I don't necessarily believe that every alien
what
being is
what
all positive and all
this
Sorry, what was that, Rodney?
but you were saying what you want to know what this is what
Yeah, I think there's a lot of physical evidence, a lot more now than there ever has been because we've got DNA typing and they've done they've taken Bigfoot hairs and they've actually tested it and found that there is some human DNA, but they can't classify what the other DNA is. So there is some evidence out there. People are doing things. They're the Patterson film for Bigfoot. They actually got biomechanics experts looking at the Patterson film, clearing it up and making it a little bit clearer. And they can see and they can make very relevant points as to why they believe that this is real because of this, and this. The weight, the distribution of the foot, the way the foot steps are happening and is different to human and things like that. Because you got like anthropology experts and biomechanics actually doing more intense studies on these things. You've got Skinwalker Ranch, which is being tested right now by astrophysicists, and people go there. Scientists are going there and they're doing research on what's happening at Skinwalker Ranch. Don't know if you've heard of Skinwalker Ranch,
Yeah,
have you?
yeah, I have on Reddit. Reddit's taught me
Yeah.
everything I know.
Yeah, a lot of very odd stuff is happening on Skinwalker Ranch, like invisible forces that are lifting the latch where the cows come out, or cows disappearing and appearing in other areas. Um, Anomalies, like they did this test or something, and it was like they could. I don't know what sort of equipment they were using, but they could, I think it was could have been infrared or something like that. And there was like a portal of some kind opening up in the center in a particular area, but these close. They open and close, and sometimes they say that there's kind of like an intelligence that they can't explain, but it actually responds to what they're doing in a way that's really, a little bit creepy, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and there's a lot of anomalies. They see a lot of geological anomalies happening. They're doing tests in the ground and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of work going on, and people just don't realize the amount of research that's going on into paranormal at the moment. It's a lot more than you think it is. It's just not being published as much because there's a definite, although there has been a shift, and I wonder why, because, the Pentagon now's released that footage of those UFOs or UAPs, as they call them.
Right, right.
And there's a narrative now that, oh, okay, these things are out there. So why are they, with all the disinformation that they've done for the last probably more than 100 years, because the first UFO crash, I think, to be recorded was around 1897 on a property, and apparently there was a government man sent out in America. Can't remember where it was, but yeah, it was recorded, and apparently they buried the body in a cemetery in the nearby town, so because a UFO crashed. But this has been going on for over 100 years, the disinformation campaign, because they feel that the public can't deal with it. I mean, just look at what was his name? What's the name of that director who did War of the Worlds broadcast? Orson
Yeah.
Welles.
Yep. Yep.
Orson Welles back in the, I think it was the 30s or 40s, made a broadcast making it sound like there was an alien invasion, and people panicked. I think people suicided from that. Things like that.
Well, think about
So
it this way. Think about it this way. Think about it this way. Think, of, think about it this way. If we were to find out, if humans were to find out that there was an alternative to Jesus Christ, an alternative to religion in general, it would change the entire direction of humanity. Not just you know giving us the ability to evolve as humans by giving us more food or places to live and just and a better overall sense of being. It would change to the point where I chaos to just an extreme level would ensue. And I'm not just, let's just say these aliens are benevolent and they're not here to harm us at all. How do you think that would play out religiously?
I definitely think there'd be a lot of conflict internally with a lot of people, that are very religious and very devout. Some people don't even want to talk about it, because it's too scary for them. And I can understand that's not something that, I would push with somebody. But I think it's important that we think about, what the implications are. And there was something that I learnt the other day, which was really interesting. It was on I think, a Bigfoot documentary. Apparently, we've lost the ability to have infrared. You know how animals see in infrared light, like they can see things that aren't there,
like
or the
ultraviolet,
things
like
that
things
are,
above, from ultraviolet and
yeah,
above.
ultraviolet, and on a different light level. Well,
Yeah.
we have that ability, but we've lost it because they did studies on it, and they found that when they were using the infrared light, that some of the, I don't know what you call it, there was a firing,
Yeah, like
slight
your rods and
firing
your
in.
cones will like trigger a
Yeah,
signal,
that's it.
but your brain doesn't process it and give an image.
Yeah,
So
the brain doesn't has forgotten how to process that. And
yeah,
I find that really fascinating that we've lost so many abilities, that where's the bridge to that? Like, why have we lost that? Is it because, we've, I don't know, we're just not
We're not hunter
using our
gatherers anymore.
tools
We don't we
effectively.
don't we don't go out and buy it. We don't go out and hunt our food. We're not. Look, I'm on a juice fast right now. Juice. Okay. So imagine it's, I don't know, man is finally stood upright, but it's still, he's still a hunter gatherer. He's still hunting for his food. I mean, we would go 3, 4, 5 days without eating. That's how it was. We didn't have refrigerators. We didn't have market. This was even 300, 400 years ago, before, even in
Yeah,
agrarian societies. Across many different parts of this planet, 300, 400 years ago, people would go 2 to 3 days without eating. You know, and they'd have to hunt
that's
down
probably,
whatever it was. And that's, I mean, our inability to do a lot of things, the way to stay warm without a jacket, to be able to understand another language with just by meeting a person. We're not in a situation where we're meeting people just by happenstance anymore. You know what I mean? Look at what we're doing right now. You're in Australia. You know, you're in Oklahoma City. I'm in Severn, Maryland. The world. I mean, we've lost a lot of our cognitive skills. We've lost a lot of
Well,
our, and honestly, we've probably lost a lot of our spirituality along with that. We've lost a lot of our ability to be humble and and trusting. Because realize when the colonials came over to the United States or to wherever they landed, most of these people were relatively trusting until things went sideways. But what were you going to say? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Pega.
well, I was going to mention like she kind of started off the whole thing by saying, empathic people or people kind of spiritually tuned or like built more like an antenna to perceive things on like a hyperdimensional or spiritual or whatever, maybe just in general in life, taking in
Mm,
more stimuli. You were mentioning how it often results in a lot of anxiety, and that's true. Like I'm somebody who gets a lot of anxiety like issues here and there. Mine kind of ebb and flow, and it kind of it gets smaller, like more shallow in its ebb and flow the older I get. When I was younger, it was like very wild, right? Very wild rides that I moderated with, alcohol and drug use. But the older I got, thank God, it flattened out a little more, and I don't have to do that as much to kind of numb myself from the overstimulation. So I feel like that's kind of part of why we've lost a lot of, like you were talking about. Perhaps this is why we've lost a little bit of our gradation of vision on the top end or the low end or whatever, is because we're narrowing down how much information we process because it means less anxiety. If we're still surviving using less of the stimuli around us and dealing with less stress, it's theoretically advantageous in that way. If you can just get by without having to process all of it, then you can pay attention to more things like that otherwise aren't just random constant stimuli. One of the interesting things that I had heard or read about was explaining the level of kind of the actual scientific like frequencies that are bombarding us, from like the cosmic radiation to sound waves to all of that. If you were to think of them as like a scale that went from like the surface of the earth to the moon, so that's the breadth of like all of the radio waves, like in their highest and lowest form, how far they would extend, how big the biggest ones would be, and the small ones would be tiny, tiny, would barely float above like the surface of the earth. That we as humans only perceive like a piano. If you took a piano and set it up right, the keys, like the first low key at the ground and the highest little ding 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 key upright, that's as high as we perceive everything that's kind of being dumped on us all at once. That we only have like that little thing, and the rest of it would shoot all the way up to the moon, and like that's we're perceiving just this tiny little bit of everything that's kind of coming in around us. And I can see the advantage of like dulling out all of that stuff, and I can tell you for sure that we're missing some of it because we know that scientifically. We as soon as we started progressing to the point where we made transistors and we started like getting beyond just analog tools where you take like a stethoscope, put it to your ear, to somebody's heart, and you hear the heartbeat. Once we started getting to the point where we make little tools that amplify noise and like reduce the frequency of like light so that we can see ultraviolet light and take photographs in space of like stars that we can't see with our eyes. We know that there's available frequencies out there that we're not tuned into to see, like you're talking about. So once again, I have to allow for the opportunity that there are people or just past humans or future beings maybe that have learned to time travel that can experience things that we're not experiencing yet at all. I also like that idea when it comes to like aliens, that one of the reasons maybe we're not talking to aliens yet isn't necessarily that they're scared of us or that they think we're too puny and ant-like and not worth their time, or we're too violent and not ready. It could be that many of them are simply perceiving and communicating on frequencies and or dimensions that don't interlace with ours enough for them to overlap enough for us to see and recognize communication is going on, or even like motion, what we consider motion. We consider motion to be a large part of recognizing that something is alive. If something is moving around in a weird a pattern, we start to analyze it as like maybe that thing's alive. You look out into the skyline or into the forest line, and you see something moving, not like the trees. The trees are very still, and not like the leaves; they're just swaying back and forth. That's kind of what they do. If something's moving along the horizon through all of that, we go, something's alive, something's there, we pay attention, we're hyper aware. That's how we analyze something to be alive. Well, if we're not perceiving, the light that's available bouncing off that thing and hitting our eyes, and there's something moving around, but we're not able to see it, how are we going to recognize that that thing is even there and that it's alive? So I think that that could be a big part of why we haven't noticed aliens being around, if they're around. Or at least I have to give credence to the idea that they could be showing up any minute. They may have shown up in the past. They may be here now. Is that we might simply not have the gear, the tools, like physically ourselves, and even scientifically, to notice that they're here yet. Like, we just don't know. So I'm not going to say they're not
I,
here.
I actually, I actually attended
I
a
really don't think I believe
C5 event.
that they have not shown up yet. I just don't think they've shown up yet. I just don't think they've. I don't believe when they. I believe that when they're ready to make contact with us. And you're right, Pago. There's a part of our inability to even have the gear to pick up the signals that they're transmitting. But I believe when they're ready, it's going to happen. I might not be here. The sun is going to be here for 14 billion more years. Sun's not going anywhere. If anyone or anything is going anywhere, it's us. Okay? So
Yeah.
hopefully in the next so many thousands of years, we're still here, and hopefully they show and they help us get off the planet.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
My view personally is
But
I do believe that there is regular contact quite often, and mainly because of a lot of the research that I've done in a lot of abductee reports that have collaborating evidence, scientific evidence, like landing sites. They've got tests of the soil where it landed, implants, the pattern on the guy who was in Canada, all of these things, radiation burns. There's a lot of things going on, like sometimes pregnancies that were there, and all of a sudden.
Oh, the CIA cut her off.
Whoa.
Oh, is she still there? Are you there?
Yeah. Sorry. Can
It's
you hear me?
okay. We can hear you. We can't see you. I thought
Uh,
I
Sorry,
thought
my
the
phone call was coming through. I should have put it on. On go away. Sorry.
God, I thought
Um,
they got to you.
no. That's quite funny, actually. um, no, I just feel that there's such a body of evidence
All right,
now
this is over. All right. Well,
and somebody's trying to stop me from talking. Uh,
nah, this is done. We're
wonderful
done.
guys.
This is okay. Okay, we're those. No, I'm joking.
Next, if I get a visit from Men in Black, I'll let you guys know. But I mean, there's just
No,
so
no, no,
much.
no, no, no. If your channel just goes like this, and there's this like it just yeah. If that happens, we're out, bro. We're out. Okay.
But no, getting back to what I was saying about there's military men that are so many military men talking about now about what they've experienced. There's astronauts like Gordon Cooper that are coming out and saying this is real. There was even some broadcasts that I heard from NASA that have been released about them talking about seeing things out in space. So but my question is, if the government was doing so much disinformation up until now, and then all of a sudden they release the Pentagon saying this is real, why now? That's what I'm trying to understand. Is it because they want to put out a narrative that these beings are going to invade us and they're bad, so that they discredit them? What are they afraid of? They're
So,
afraid that.
as a political expert, my first guess would be Usually when somebody does that in politics, it's to get ahead of a story, which would tell me that the aliens have some troubling information about the government, like it's been cheating on its wife. So it wants to go ahead and get ahead of the story and do some like distraction stuff, like, oh, there's aliens, and you want to be concerned about the aliens, to discredit the aliens first, so that we're scared of them and we're worried about them, so that when the aliens come forward and be like, the government's been taking bribes from us the whole time, we've been sleeping with the government, and the government's not that great in bed. The government has, like, us on its side. It's like, now wait a minute, the government warned us about you. We know you're just blowing
Basically,
smoke.
they've they've been in transmission with the government for like over 100 years.
It would seem that way. If it turns out that they admit like stuff, if they admit that there are things now, it would be pretty safe to assume that a lot of the stories that have been, talked about, discussed about,
Mm.
they're now in question as being real. Now we have to wonder, like, how long has this been going
Like,
on?
you
And
guys knew this. You knew this, and you didn't tell us.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I
And
mean,
to what end? Because nobody, to our knowledge, has gotten the gift of immortality. Have any of them gotten rides, to other planets? That would really piss me off if some of them have actually seen other planets and then didn't tell us about it. Maybe that's how James Cameron knows about all of these, how to design these
yeah,
beautiful planets
man.
and the.
All I need is a
So
rocket launcher, dude. That's all I need.
what would you what would you guys do if you got invited to another planet by some aliens? If the thing landed and you were given the
Dude,
thumbs
okay,
up on, like,
real quick, dude. Okay. So I remember watching Alien for the first time. Okay, in the theater. I think it was what, 1978, something like that. I can't remember. Was it 82, 81? Bro, I think what was the name of the ship? Not Nostromo.
I
And
can't remember.
I was just like, no, I don't want. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be intergalactic. I don't want to do it. Nope. I'm good on Earth. Like, hey man, let's jump off this boat in the middle of the ocean and go. Let's just go for a swim. No, dude, I've done that. I was in the Marine Corps 6 years. Not doing it again. You know what I mean? Dude, look, we know what's out there. Okay. I mean, what was our who was the nemesis of Captain Kirk up there in what are they
Khan?
called?
Talk about
The
Khan?
Romulans.
Oh, the
Yes.
Romulans. Okay.
Well, yeah, the Romulans. Yeah, I don't want to meet any Romulans, dude. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
need it. You know what I mean? Look, dude, I get it. I mean, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I told you to that you guys were going to be a lot more informed than I am because I mean, I don't know about this stuff like you guys do. But at the same time, I understand that, when someone says, let's go for a hike in San Diego, and I'm like, nah, dude, I'm good. There's something called mountain lions up there, dog. I'm good. Let's get on no, like, why would I want to do that? I know you two would be, you two would be all over it. Like, yeah, bro, put me on that ship. I'm good. Like, who's got tickets? I mean, I'm good. Continue.
I don't know. We didn't hear from Julie. Julie, would you, if you were given the thumbs up for its safety, like the ship wouldn't kill you within minutes of you being on it. If you were going to be relatively safe, like bodily, while being in that ship and stuff, would you go aboard?
I suppose it depends on what type of alien I'm dealing with.
That
Because
that's fair.
from what reports I've heard, there are many different
I'm telling
types.
you, dude.
So
Yeah,
definitely not
yeah,
the
dude. I'm not trying to
reptilian.
do that. I'm not really. No, no,
Yeah,
no. Like,
if
dude's
I
like,
saw a
bro.
reptilian,
Like, if he's chill,
If you saw what, Julie?
if I saw a reptilian, I would definitely not.
a
'Cause
reptilian.
Yeah, I have a bit of a,
Like,
because
you know,
when I was a kid,
no.
I'll say this much: when I was a kid, there's this animal called goanna here, which is like a big lizard, and literally they're so huge, and they run on two legs, and they frill their gills
I've seen
out,
those. Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
absolutely terrifying for a child 8 years old. I saw one run in front of me when I was little, so anything I've managed to kind of overcome because I looked after my friend's lizard. For I think it was a, can't remember the type of lizard it was, but God, they're fast. They run very fast. So I managed to get over my fear. But if I saw like a 6'4" reptilian, that would be it for me. I'd be out of there, like literally.
So
The human looking ones I might be more interested in speaking with, because obviously there are some that look human but have extrasensory abilities. I would definitely be interested. I don't know. I mean, there's many types apparently that have been recorded that people have seen that have had experiences. So it's a hard one because you don't know who do you trust. You know who would be
Hey,
trustworthy.
real quick,
You know.
what was that movie? What was that movie with Bruce Willis and Chris Tucker? Do you guys remember
Oh,
that, where Chris Tucker was like the he was oh god, oh, and the girl, she
I
was
know
like
which one you're talking
she was
about.
like
I
labataba.
can't remember the name.
What a great movie! What a great you talk, and they
oh,
had
are you talking
The
about
the big
Fifth
singer
Element.
with
Fifth
the
The
blue.
Fifth
Element?
Element.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was such a great. Oh my god! All right,
Yeah, if the
that's what
ship
I
was
yeah.
full of people who
You're on a
looked like
ship.
her in the Fifth Element, yeah, I'd be on a ship with a ship full of her. Come on, that'd be amazing.
Chris Tucker alone would be worth the trip.
I was gonna say
Dude, that was
with your
such a great flick.
with your reptilian aliens, I I would base whether or not I'd get on the ship. Do I have access to the thermostat? Because if I have access to the thermostat, I can just turn that down. If they start getting a little grabby or they start licking their lips like they're hungry, they're gonna get slow. Then I can land the ship real fast and crawl off before they get to the thermostat in time to turn it back up so that they can move
Good
fast enough.
point.
I think that
Good point.
yeah. I don't know.
Their,
I
their
think I
blood
Apparently,
would.
gets
there's
cold.
a.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Apparently, I heard a story that there's quite a few in Arizona. So
Of the reptilian aliens.
yeah, there was a story. Actually, I don't know if you know, because they had this show, and it was talking about experiences of celebrities. They had some experiences with different paranormal things. And Patty Stanger of Millionaire Matchmaker said that she had this experience in Arizona where she went into a shop and there was a Native American there, and she said, you know, you have, I can't remember what she said exactly, but I think something along the lines of you're very sensitive or you're intuitive or you have something, you know, she said to her. And so she was walking around with her friend in Arizona. She was staying there for a while, and she went up to this stand to get like fast food or something like that. And there was this guy with a hoodie standing there, and she said that when he turned around, she said she got the shock of her life because it's like he shapeshifted briefly, like his face shifted into like something like a reptile or something like that, and shapeshifted back. And she was really scared because obviously you don't see that every day walking down Arizona. Um, but obviously maybe there is. But
I'd be,
apparently she went back.
I'd,
She
I'd,
went back
I'd be
to.
gone. I'd be like, hey, bro.
Oh, I would too. I'd be out of there. But apparently she went back to her hotel room, and that night that being appeared in her room, and she was praying like crazy, like, you know, this can't happen. So yeah, and I've heard stories about Arizona being a particular hotspot for UFOs, particularly Sedona in particular. So, and obviously the geological sites are quite, you know, strong with energy. and electromagnetic energy. So it's not surprising that that
If
could
I took you to where
possibly
I lived
be.
in the desert, took you to where I lived in the desert up in Lucerne Valley, which is just the there. I mean, so here's the deal: you go up the 15, you take this right onto Bear Valley Road, and as soon as you get to the end of Bear Valley Road, you're on Highway 18, and Highway 18 will take you all the way up to the back of Big Bear, but you're in the Mojave, and but the energy off the you can just feel it as soon as you
Yeah.
just the dude yeah the dirt that mountain Big Bear is just there's so much going on out there, man. Like you just I mean, even in San Diego, even the energy of that city, and you can see Pago, you know, dude, you lived there with you were there with me. The 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 geological and geographical um, energy that that city gives off is just amazing. I mean, there. So this one time I got like I was just so stoned one night, dude. I was like stoned out of brains, and I looked up. It was a full moon. It was a full moon, and I looked up at the moon, and I was down the hill, dude, from the whistle stop. You know, the hill that goes to the golf course, Pago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was standing there, and the full was moon. The full was moon. I
The
must be
moon
stoned
was
again.
full.
The moon was full. Uh, and I'm looking. I was like, dude. I'm like, I've never felt like this before. No, you know you're both right. I think that just being alive and you know who what's waiting for us in the next in the next journey after this soul and this whole like thing is gone, this body is gone. But what's what is our next destination after after it's all been said and done, like where are we going? You know, where's that headed? What's out there in the great beyond when the lights like finally go off? When they shut us down. That's
I think
that's I think about it. The only reason I think about it is because my real quick that my brother passed away. My brother was one extreme. He had like an extremely large amount of spiritual faith. He was a very religious person, but he was an extremely spiritual person, and you could just feel it in my brother Michael. He could just he exuded it, and I wonder where he is right now. Like I wonder what because I think about him so hard all the time. You know, you know, because he's just like, dude, if you knew my brother Michael, he was so intense. I just like I know he's out there doing something, dude. I just know it.
yeah, I since my mum died and my dad died, I've had a lot of dreams. Sometimes they come into my dreams and talk to me. So I don't know. There is definitely, a different level of consciousness, when you remove your mortal coil, so to speak. Um, yeah, I definitely feel because
Mm,
I've been on the brink many times. I've seen things in people. I don't know. Sometimes I can read energy in people, and I see that there's a lot that they need to work through, with that energy, and it's going to be hard for them when they go through that transition to the other world because sometimes people get lost in the way. I mean, I've had many philosophical discussions over the last few weeks with many different people of different religions, and my belief is that no matter what religion you are, I think it's like think of it like a circle, and there's many doors that come in different directions, to that one circle, and that one circle is a creator, whatever you perceive it to be. And the thing that's important is who you are as a person and how you treat others, respect, care and love and that sort of thing. And to work through, the things that you need to learn and the things that may not be, perfect about you. That you need to work on those things and come to understandings and that sort of thing. But most of all, love is the most important thing out of everything, to love one another. And if you have an
Have you ever
absence of
seen?
that, sorry, what were you saying?
Ha, ha, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, no, no. Just that, with a lot of people get caught up in my religion says that this, and this, and anyone else that doesn't believe this is going here, and this. I don't believe that. I don't believe that we can judge another religion. I just feel that each experience is unique. Each near-death experience is unique. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of near-death people who talk about their experiences, and each has a different perception of what they experience. One near-death situation, there was a girl
Yeah.
that was out for over an hour. She was dead, and that's practically impossible. She was frozen solid. The girl was frozen solid. You could practically pick her up and she was as stiff as a board. So she was basically dead and her pupils were fixed and dilated, and they brought her back to life. I don't know how they did that. But she talked about her experience. She spoke to Jesus because she was a Christian. That would be most likely experience. If you talk to a Muslim or a Hindu or someone of a different background, they would have that perceptive experience because that's the religion they believe in, the one they can relate to. So I believe that, the creator appears in a way that they can relate to, so that, they don't feel lost when they make the transition. I don't feel that there should be any judgment of another's religion. I just think, the important thing to remember is that we must learn to love one another, even despite differences, as long as they're not breaking spiritual laws like killing another person or, that. But even so, we still, might have that capacity to love, but without getting caught up in what they've done wrong, if that makes sense. Um,
Hmm.
Have
it's
you
a
heard
hard
the
way.
term? Have you heard the term? Have you heard? I'm sure you guys have. I know. Have you ever seen a child who's like 15 years old? There's this. I was watching American Idol. I was watching, and this girl, her name was Casey Bishop, and this chick, 15 years old. She could sing like Ella Fitzgerald. She's a little white girl, jet black hair, and she sang. It was I forgot who, but she sang this. One of the judges was like, "Yeah, it seems like you like, yeah, you don't, yeah, like not just an old soul been on this planet before. Like this is like your second or third time here. Do you ever get that feeling with other people, you guys, or I mean, have you ever felt that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being hyper aware of how much bullshit adults were throwing at kids, like as far as like they thought we had a lack of understanding, and maybe I thought that every child kind of like was born like an adult because that's kind of the way my brain worked. Like I was a very serious like
Mm,
kid compared to other kids. Like other kids were kind of goofballs and didn't take certain things as like seriously, like kind of the morality and ethical stuff as I did. And I remember uh, the adults all being very kind of like condescending in the way that they spoke to me, and it just didn't feel right, didn't seem right, because I felt internally that I was as mature or at least as understanding
mm.
as they were. Definitely not as mature in like life experience and like had things to learn. Of course, was going to make mistakes and all that. But I definitely felt like an older soul than I was treated like. And I've certainly met some young adults like nephews and nieces who were kind of more mature than like their parents were. um, And I've read about, of course, instances where you have somebody like Beethoven or Mozart, who like excel. Their brain is just hyper built, and they're able to navigate the world as kids better than most adults can. I don't know if that translates to how they felt spiritually, but I've certainly seen some people who are far more spiritually advanced as young people than adults ever obtain in adulthood that I've met. I've met adults who just can't seem to figure out how to be empathic at all, who don't know how to like apologize for their mistakes or understands that they're, harming other people or animals, that they're harming other animals. They don't understand why you shouldn't kick a dog and stuff. And like as a child, I never would have done that. And I would have, understood a lot more than that. Not just not to kick a dog, but a lot of the complexities of the world. So does that come from having a soul that's kind of been recycled a couple times? I don't know, but I do know that there are different maturity levels or something, different complexity levels of like spirit or soul or whatever you want to say in different people for sure. I know that for sure. I'm not sure what that means though.
Yeah, I personally believe in
Last question.
reincarnation
Last
because I,
question. Last. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Let
that's
let
what I
her.
was going to ask you about. No, that's
no,
exactly what I
I
was going to
personally
ask.
believe in,
Reincarnation. Go for it.
yeah, I personally believe in reincarnation myself. I actually grew up going to school with a lot of Buddhists. So if there was any religion I kind of feel more attuned to, it would be Buddhism in terms of spiritually and compassionately. Um, and I would have many discussions with my Buddhist friends about reincarnation because that was a really interesting subject to me. I've had many kind of dreams. I feel that I was certain people in other lifetimes. I had a Native American healer who was Cherokee actually do a healing with me, and some past life things came up during that experience. Um, I had a vision once or a dream about being a monk in a monastery and actually concealing a murder, which was, I didn't do the murder myself, but
Okay.
the other person did the murder, but I was helping him conceal it, which was a very disturbing vision to have. But there was some reason that it was coming up at that stage. I think it was to do with one of my friends who I had a falling out with, and sort of like a karmic kind of situation coming back around, and kind of finishing that off. I've had a few dreams of different things, and I've even had a hypnosis. I had a hypnosis, and we did some past life regression, which was really interesting because I was a Spartan warrior in one stage, and I got injured in my abdomen because we were fighting, and yeah, that's how I died through that. So there's a lot of different experiences, and the interesting thing is that when I was very young, I had this ability to absorb, like read a book within 2 hours, really thick, and actually retain the information in the book like really strongly if I was interested in it. If I wasn't interested in it, I wouldn't retain it. But if I'm interested in the subject, I'm like, my friend calls me the encyclopedia. So, if you want to know about paranormal, she's like the encyclopedia of paranormal. So I kind of, really fostered that a lot because I read a lot as a child, and I was told that I had sort of a reading ability a few years ahead. So, I've really utilized that skill a lot in what I research and things like that. And, you know, I've got this thing for languages too. Like, I pick up, bits and pieces. I think if I really put my head to it, I could probably learn a few languages. I'm not as good as the guy He's got a YouTube channel. He's called I forgot Shulmal, I think his name is, but he's a American guy that picks up a language in 2 weeks. He can speak African languages. He can speak Portuguese. He can speak Chinese. He speaks everything within 2 weeks. The guy just learns and he can have a conversation with someone. He's absolute polyglot. But where does this come from? Like, where's this? I have so much familiarity with other cultures. Like, I fit hand in glove. Like, I've got this attraction to certain cultures. Just certain things that kind of familiar to me, like feel familiar, and it's all very interesting.
You've been here before. You've been here. You've been here before.
I feel so old. I feel so old before my time. But when I was a kid, I used to say things to kids, and did you see that, or do you think this, or whatever? And they used to look at me like I was crazy because, it's like, oh, they don't understand me. And it was just a matter of finding my tribe. It took me a long time because I spent many days at school in the library because I didn't have any friends that could relate to me, that could understand me, because and I was perceiving things. Sometimes I would pick up things about their energy and stuff, and sometimes I would say the truth and it would freak them out and they would run away. I had a situation once with a girlfriend where she was suspecting her boyfriend of cheating, and we kind of had an idea where this girl was living that he was cheating with, but we didn't know exactly where. So we're driving around the area and I said to her, what would happen right now if I turned my head and his car was there? And guess what? I turned my head and his car was right there at the moment that I turned my head. And she freaked out. She said, I can't believe you. And we went up the street and his car was there. And I said, is that his car? And she goes, yes, because I recognize what's in his car. So literally, I'm like a beacon, homing beacon. So I was like fine tuning that kind of. Sometimes it comes to me. Sometimes if I'm too frustrated or tired or whatever, it doesn't work. But sometimes if I'm in a really clear state of mind, sometimes inspiration can come through. So, I think it's always should be developed, I think, when you're mature enough to handle it. Because I think when I was younger, I was all over the place a lot more.
I think
Go
like
ahead, Rodney.
spirits, like souls, and like I was going to say, I think like souls and like spirits and like minds somehow find one another. You know what I mean? Like Pago and I wrote some amazing music. Like you have no idea how good this stuff was. The one something heart. What was the name of that?
Wooden Dragon Heart.
Just an amazing song. Oh, the song is so good. Oh my god! Like the whole thing. Da, da, na, 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 na. Such a great song. You have no idea how good this. I mean, Julie, Pago is. Don't let him fool you. Okay, he's an immensely
He's not always so analytical.
talented human being. No. Trust me. He's got a gift. I remember one time I'm like, dude, I was writing this song and I was like, and I knew who to call. I was like, Pago, look, man. And I read it. Well, she had lilies in her hair, dude. That's this line. And it was the next line of the song. And it was like, dude, if you heard the song, it's like perfect. Yeah, it's crazy. Like the stuff that there was a point in time at that house, Pago, where you and I were like, and everyone who walked in there, anyone who was subjected to the artistry or artistic nature of that happening, because that's what it was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was just, dude. It was just phenomenal, dude.
Yeah, we were on
Phenomenal.
fire. That's for sure. Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
me it
I
wasn't.
mean, no,
No, dude, it was.
I
Dude, we
agree with you.
killed it. We killed it.
there's there's like you're saying, like minds come together often. I won't say all the time, but often when they need to. And that was certainly one of those moments where, synchronicity was a thing. And once we started kind of hammering out some ideas, I mean, there wasn't much hammering to it. Hammering kind of indicates that you're forcing a nail into something it doesn't want to be in. There was none of that. It was more like we were kind of dancing with making our minds dance with the universe and just kind of letting it all happen. It was great, and it's definitely the best music I've ever been a part of making. So, yeah.
That's how I feel about
I
dancing
gotta,
because
Julie, I gotta send you that song.
yeah, I have to listen to it. But yeah, like anything creative is,
But go ahead. About
I mean, when you think about it, creative, like creation, you're creating something, from a divine place, and that's what all creativity is. And it's definitely the feminine principle, it's bringing forth, something beautiful from another dimensional reality, I guess, and bringing it down onto earth, any sort of creativity is like that. And it's really
mm,
good when you connect to people who are very like-minded, because that's how I feel when I talk with people who are like-minded like me, in terms of the paranormal field, who kind of understand what I've been through, and yeah,
mm.
I went.
Oh, she went black. Are you
Uh,
are you still there? I think she got another phone call. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry. I've got a
So,
friend calling me. My friend.
well, you know what? Let's wrap it up. Let's. It's a minute.
well,
It's an
let her
hour.
finish her
Yeah.
let her
Let's.
finish her thought. Let her finish her thought real quick, and then yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They're calling back.
Oops.
She, oh my God, she must be, she must have heard me for some reason. I don't know, but
She,
yeah, she doesn't often call because she lives in
Your
another
ears are
state
burning.
to me. So
mhm.
yeah, I have to call her back.
Right on.
But uh, what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought for a
You were
second.
talking about like that's kind of like how you feel about creativity, like pulling from the universe, the feminine nature, and that they're related, like paranormals, like that. How you've met people of like-mindedness and like experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah, anything that I've done creatively, which because I draw sometimes. I love dancing. Dancing is one of my creative outlets. I couldn't sing. I leave that to my daughter because she can sing. But sometimes when I dance with people or partners or somebody that I've met, it's been like a really interesting experience. Like when you find that person, and particularly if you dance with men, there's always these expectations. Oh, can I get your number or whatever? But it hasn't always been that way. It's been, I've met somebody who I call it dance chemistry, with. And I once went to a salsa club and I was learning salsa at the time. And, I just love that dancing so much that it just kind of, it really touches my spirit. And I met another person who was a really good dancer, and we danced the whole night. There was no expectation of anything, and we went our separate ways. But in that moment, we were really in the moment in terms of, that kind of spirit, and creating, the dance. And I had dance chemistry with him. It was kind of a connection.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Oh, Doggo's come in.
Yeah, that's Mucky. Yeah.
What's his name?
It's a girl. It's a her. Her name is
Oh, it's a
Mucky.
girl.
Like like mud is muck, so it's like
Yeah.
Mucky. Like she's mucky. So,
You must give her a bath a few times a week or something.
I need to. um, I certainly understand what you're talking about with like dance. Yeah, there's multiple venues of creation. Like painting sometimes does it. Writing often does it for me. Singing has done, or like playing in bands. When you get people to line up on the same page, particularly when it's kind of not a free flow like free flow jazz, but like when we are testing out new waters and everybody kind of hits the right page at the same time and a song just kind of happens, it feels like it's otherworldly, like it's something magical from a different realm. So yeah, I think creativity certainly is one venue, one path to talk to the other side, if there is another side, the other universes, the deeper connections in life that we call God or whatever. Those are the moments that I feel connected to the universe in that way. Not necessarily when I go to church. I remember as a kid, like feeling some of that in a church, every once in a while, certain sermons, certain moments in my life, but nothing ever as strong as when like Rodney and I and a few other people would start testing out a few notes, and then just all of a sudden a song would pull out of the universe. Those are some very powerful moments. So yeah, yeah. Are you are you wanting to say something, Rodney?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
you're
no.
just like you're
I'm
saying
just
preach.
no, dude.
Well,
You know what? This has been good. It's been.
yeah,
I totally enjoyed this.
good. Yeah, we're at
I think
an
Julie's
hour
on the
and
phone.
50 minutes. Yeah, yeah. I think her
Yeah.
friend has called enough. She wondered if she fell off the face of the earth or what. Um, Julie, can you hear us?
What happened to her? Yeah.
Well, all right.
Oh,
So
I
we
think she's on the
will.
phone.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll let her finish off that phone call, and we'll just kind of go back to we'll end our recording and go back to our little hub and see if she shows back up. But thanks for keep sticking around. For anybody who's made it all the way through, like an hour and 51 minutes is where we're at on this paranormal episode of American Micro Podcast. I appreciate it. I'm glad that Julie from Australia, from Melbourne, is that right? She's from Melbourne. That she came to join us.
Melbourne.
Melbourne. I'm glad that she joined us for the this crazy podcast. I really enjoyed going from like ghosts to UFOs to Bigfoot to
Good
Lumerians
man. I enjoyed.
to God or whatever we want to call it, or all that good stuff. So it was really fascinating. I don't know
A
what our
lot of
next
stuff
topic
in
will be,
between.
but yeah, a lot of stuff. But yeah, thanks
But
everybody.
we'll
Thanks
figure it out.
Rodney. Thanks Julie. Julie, I hope we catch you here soon. But the rest of you, we will see you on the
Oh, by the
next.
way, please subscribe. Please hold on. Please subscribe and please hit the like button.
Yeah. Go to his Facebook page, and we will see you in comments. Let us know what kind of topics you want to talk about next. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Peace.
Have a good one.